Oh man, Metzen.
Yeah, there's like, it's weird because there's so much to say about Metzen and back. At the same time, there's not all that much because he's creative advisor, and you go, what does that mean? Who knows? Is it him like kicking the door down and going, I'm fucking back, I'm taking control of this ship, this is my baby again? Or is it him sitting on a board getting paid like 5-6 figures just to go, dragons? Yeah, that sounds alright, yeah, work away. It's hard to know which sort of part. Yeah, that's a thing where we don't know which both it is. We'll just have to see if like in like the, like, I guess because it'll be the next expansion before we see that. Because I assume he'll be like advising over like the I guess the top level view of like the next couple expansions, and then because obviously in the announcement John had talks about how he'll be like doing other stuff in Warcraft after like initially coming on to World of Warcraft. So I imagine that's him be like, all right, here's the top level. What are you doing for the next couple expansions? Yeah, those ideas are okay. That one's a bit shitty. I want to do it this way. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm gonna go make Warcraft 4.
So I think the deal is you've got, big picture people who are fast and loose with the details.
Yes.
And then you have a lot of sort of small picture, like mega detailed oriented people. And, sometimes you have people that can do both, like George Martin, and it takes them 50 years to do anything.
Indeed.
The thing with Chris Metzen is he, I believe, is more of a big picture, working on a top sort of big thematic level rather than the small details, which has certainly meant that something about Red Shirt Guy and Kurtran Wildhammer at BlizzCon. But the thing that Chris has generally done is the vibe, the big vibe, and the big vibe of Warcraft comes from him and Samwise.
Sure does.
And I think if you look at Dragonflight is really good World of Warcraft without the Metzen feel. Now, when I say the Metzen feel, I'm not trying to do some bizarre deifying thing. No. I am saying Metzen and the set of creative circumstances and people around him at that period of time.
Yeah.
Because like Dragonflight's really good, but also it is tonally like, look at the big expensive CGI thing where, it was Toddy Whiskers or whatever is flying around and everyone's going, wahoo, wee, wee. It's like very different in tone. Compare it to Warlords of Draenor, compare it to the Battle for Azeroth cinematic, which is one of the last things that Metzen worked on before he left the company, right?
Yeah.
So I have an expectation that this is less about Chris, writing quests. He wasn't really doing that, I don't think, much anyway. I don't think this is Chris, doing any of those details. I think this is Chris sort of advising on what feels big Warcraft. I think Blizzard have undoubtedly, they've probably seen how Dragonflight's marketing has went down, where Dragonflight was appealing to people like us who were sort of still invested in the game, but were basically hanging on by a thread, who wanted a complete palate cleanser to Shadowlands. Dragonflight is a successful palette cleanser tonally to Shadowlands, but in no way is any of the start of this expansion going to be cool and big in the way of Wrath of the Lich King, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, or Battle for Azeroth. When we think about those, even just compare their cinematics, because that's going to be one of the main big marketing things that is the tone setter, the vibe setter for the broad audience. And Dragonflight is more of a Mists of Pandaria. Mists of Pandaria, brilliant expansion, also a slow burn. It had... Maybe people will mock this one for being How to Train Your Dragon. People will mock it for being the Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, I think
Mop was just like, whoa, what the fuck is this? This doesn't feel like Warcraft anymore. And to some people, Dragonflight feels like a softer Warcraft. I think the job of Metzen will be to inject the awesome into a world that is full of heartful stories and soft boys. But frankly, that does just need a whole bunch of Tren injected in it.
I don't know if a Tremboloni sandwich is really what World of Warcraft needs.
I think the Liver King needs to retire into the world of Warcraft and just be an orc.
Ah, yes.
But you know what I mean?
A big lion.
I mean, if you are a... Look, if this is an American domestic game, and you have a guy being like, fuck this shit, I'm not going to be a part of you guys, freedom!
Yeah,
that is very America, beer, metal, Azeroth choppers!
Yeah.
Oh dear. Maybe less Azeroth choppers. But look, Warlords of Draenor, even though it's, certainly has some issues going the distance, bit of an endurance problem. It had a strong launch, and it had stuff that overall still felt quite Warcrafty to people. I think that MoP set them up to have a really strong game and an audience willing to enjoy the next thing, and then WoD's marketing absolutely blew up because atop that very fertile soil, it then gave a humongous dose of steroids and metal.
Yeah, I was actually, I was looking for a recent enough clip of Metzen looking pretty animated for the thumbnail for this stream. And the best place I could find it in terms of both, there's high quality video available online, and also him properly celebrating with the crowd, was the Warlords announcement. And the energy in that room was insane. And I remember how it felt a little tiny bit cringe and really high budget marketing to throw Gorehal into a taxi. And was that New York, I think it was?
Yeah.
And it's all the same, it's Gorehal in a taxi. It's yeah, fucking right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Whereas, this does feel a bit more like it's a modern TV show. Everyone stops every 5 minutes to cry and talk about their feelings. There's a place for that. But I'm not saying this to come off very offensive to the people making the game. I think that it's a different team with maybe a little bit of a different spirit, especially given recent events in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And that stuff is important. I would say that being 100% in this direction has a bit of a weakness, and I'd also say that being 100% in the old school direction has another narrative weakness. Where Warcraft was always at its best is whenever it was able to bring the stuff that they're doing well right now in with the things that they did really well in the past.
Yeah.
And I think because we have a team that can evidently do a lot of that stuff really well right now, if we can get a bit more of that kind of energy back, should be good.
Yeah, because they certainly, I think I've said this a couple times now, but obviously a lot of the tone of things in Dragonflight isn't exactly up my alley, creatively. This kind of stuff that I prefer to have. But it's unmistakable how the technical execution of it, even from a writing perspective of the side quests, and how they take these I guess small emotional stories that are a little bit more, let's say, emotionally nuanced than anything Warcraft has had before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the major benefits of coming from that angle, where they are kind of more focused on the emotional intelligence angle instead of these Tauren are really badass. Because obviously Tauren being badass is cool. But also an emotionally nuanced story is also very cool and enjoyable.
Imagine if
having
we could
having the both of them together, and that's where some of the stuff of them dealing with. I mean, Saurfang I think was maybe the best example of that.
Perfection, yeah.
Where Saurfang was where this is old school metal ass orc. Everyone remembers Cleave memes, but also here's he's old now. Here's the emotional side to what he's done, and how that legacy carries forward. And I think that's why that resonated super hard with people, because it was basically that perfect marriage of, oh yeah, this is the cool thing we remember, but we're all a bit older, we're all a bit wiser, and I kind of you want a little bit more of that, especially with how media in general has evolved in the past 20 years. I think people are a little bit more interested in in general, more interested in relatively nuanced and high quality stuff.
Yeah.
So all they need to do is get a little bit of that oomph back in.
Imagine if Bane did something other than show how he's emotionally sensitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then we could have Bane, the well-developed character, and actually think, oh, he's backing that shit up.
Yeah, the idea of because this is a part that I get preemptively annoyed, because there's so many cool things that I know they aren't really interested in doing, and they don't really have the time to do it. But it's the Grim Totem stuff, right? It's the Grim Totem. It's how is Bane going to handle Kural Grim Totem having caused this massive problem? Is that going to be a thing that's dealt with at all, or is a Grim Totem name just a little bit of, hey, you can imagine everything that's back here that's going on? You're not going to get to see it done, because we literally can't, but it's an idea that you have, because that's fine enough. but it does leave you like, it's just a little bit like, it's a taste, and you want to gorge yourself on that idea. And that's what I like talking about, how it used to be metal. I threw it in the bottom of our little note about the Metzen back there. But there's one image that lives in my head, and it's just concept art of the Torn. Have you got it up there? Or?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just this concept art of the Torn. I have to fix chat. Shit. But yeah, concept of the Torn, and it's just like the detail going in and how, like, I have this image saved to my PC as Warcraft used to be metal.png.
Okay. I just want you to picture Bane Bloodhoof.
Yeah.
And then I'll read this. For every kill in battle, the Tauren braids a section of his coat. Legend has it that where Stonehorn had... Oh, someone called, I guess, where Stonehorn had 87 or 9 braids on his hide upon his death.
Yeah.
Now, you know, like, young Tauren bull. No one's going to say that about Bane.
Not anymore, no.
They're more going to say, Bane, a young Tauren bullock. Now, I don't know if bullock is the actual, I don't know if that's just a sort of colloquial term. But you know the way you have a breeding bull, and then you have the ones that have their nuts chopped off, so that they can't be doing any of that shifty business.
Ah, yes.
In the old farming. So imagine if Bane was indeed a young Tauren bull, and he actually did things, and did more than... Because you know what happens, right? They keep on putting him in situations where, let's just say if Christy Golden's doing writing for Bane, all that she can really do is, like, write maybe his internal monologue or, write what she does best. But they're never putting Bane in a situation where he can also feel like a Tauren. Bane often... Well, actually, that's basically the problem. Bane doesn't really feel like he's from much of a different culture.
That's the thing.
Bane does feel like he is a human cowman.
That's why I think like this sticks in my head so much, because it's the idea that these Tauren were these like vastly different people, and the only reason that there were differences enough between them and the orcs, and the only reason they got along was because of like some shared ideals. And they go, okay, we're different people, because like the orcs are definitely a lot more like warlike, definitely a lot more kind of, I don't know how much the orcs in general would adhere to a tenet of, say, use every part of your kill. I imagine a lot of orc hunters would just be more, let's just kill as much as we can. Whereas you could imagine like the Tauren and the Night Elves would be the same. Like, you're hunting something, you've killed something. Well, the only way to honor that creature's life is to use every part of it.
Do you know what they
drink? I know the Centaur do that as well. Yeah.
Blood honey.
Yeah, of course they do.
Blood honey. Get some blood, get some honey.
Yeah, so it's the ideas of these like more, I guess more harsh and more like stronger cultures and the split between them. Whereas now we have everyone, especially with everyone speaking like, and this is like a really small thing, but most of the time everyone just speaks in common. And obviously you have to have that. You can't have, all right, here's like, as an example, here's Thrall and Jin in a room. They can't speak to each other because they don't know the same language. That would be nonsensical. But it's that idea of like those being more separate cultures with differences. I think that's the main thing like Dragonflight's missing, is the differences between cultures resulting in friction between them and how they get on. A lot of it is like, oh, hey, you show up with like the Centaur, and they're all just like, oh yeah, we know you're all happy, good people. There's no edge to your thing that we go, listen, we don't like how you get on here specifically, but we are going to like overlook that because we have a greater enemy to face.
I feel like multiple points of that. I mean, number one, just what comes to my mind is shameful to spray.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, yep, this is white boy doing Japanese. Now, Jim Cummings, good fella. But, him doing Winnie the Pooh is, or not Winnie the Pooh, him doing, he is the voice of, is he the voice of Winnie the Pooh? He is the voice of Winnie the Pooh, yeah. Him doing the voice of Lore Walker Cho, like, it would sound decently similar to me just trying to do a knockoff Japanese accent.
The Mogu are dire, like.
The Mogu are, the Father Ted episode where he certainly...
Yes.
You're a racist now, Father. If we were to actually replicate what they did in Mists of Pandaria, especially in modern day, we would be reamed on the internet. Yeah, and a bunch of people on the Mongolian basket weaving forum would probably say something, I don't know, about baseness or something. Based on what? And I know that this seems like a massive tangent, and in many ways this is a massive tangent, but I really do think that, compare the typical English anime VO version of FF14, like Endwalker, versus the one that we got, where it was more not games industry actors who are used to radio plays, theater, and television. I mean, it would be a night and day difference, and a lot of that would be because of, I think, texture. And whenever I think people get excited about the idea of Metzen coming back, it's because there's a degree of that imperceptible texture that people want to return to the world. I think people are happy with the more emotionally nuanced and maybe more emotionally intelligent storytelling that's happening now. I think that if you then can mix that in with that level of gruff, excited, actually epic, rather than we've wrote an epic scene and then some people went into a box and delivered some lines, which is how some of the things feel right now. I think that's the sort of thing that gets us to those, Draenor is free or whatever, to those sorts of performances that are the ones that stand out.
Indeed.
Yeah. Overall, then, I'm pretty excited about Metzen coming back. Now, if you do like what he's been doing with Warchief Gaming, which is their sort of tabletop, big plans, fear not. So all's good there. And I think if you want, there, Jez Corden's happy. Great.
Of course he is.
Jesse Cox is happy. Michael Loda.
It's hard not to be happy.
Loda hype. Nature's healing. There's Mr. Survival Hunter and Feral Druid, Cyberstat. I believe he's casting Race to World First stuff. And yeah, just kind of loads of our usual Twitter suspects, I suppose. Yep. Which is, that's good to see. We're actually seeing, plenty of staff pretty excited as well, which is great. And yeah, just overall good shit. Hey, if the people who are working on World of Warcraft are publicly very happy about all of this, that's a really good thing. If people are concerned about Metzen being around, obviously during the problematic days of Blizzard, yes. I guess from what I'll say what I can ascertain from this, sometimes there are certain sets of norms that exist, and as time changes, norms change, and we look back at things that we maybe said in the past, that now we'd be like, oh, was that thing that me and all of our friends said when we were 16 years old actually just a bit of casual racism, but we didn't notice it or didn't know it because, we live in Northern Ireland and yes. It's fucking Northern Ireland, or you know what I mean, right? Lots of words that will get people into trouble on Twitch.television that maybe would have been more common a good old while ago. So, those standards will change. I think one of the things that happened with Blizzard, though, is, immature company with massively outsized success, extremely fast growth. And with that, I mean, it's the idea that money and success, they don't corrupt somebody, they reveal somebody. Yes. Right? It's the idea that, who you are in so many ways changes depending on your circumstance. It's why a lot of people, they shouldn't look at the prison guard at camp in the 1940s and think, I could never do that. I would sooner take an honorable stand and be shot. You don't know that because you're not in that circumstance. In the same way that you don't know that if you suddenly won the lottery, had complete fame and success or whatever, that you wouldn't actually be an asshole. Because you've probably been an asshole at some point in your life. That's another little side of you that can be revealed. And that's why I think we all just have to be very, very humble about kind of who and what we are. And I think that applies to a lot of this situation. Obviously, with likes of Afrosabi, very bad. From every bit of digging that I did, there was nothing particularly, bad with Metzen. He was around the place when bad things were happening, as I guess literally every member of staff at Blizzard Entertainment was. He probably does have an enhanced degree, just because of being more senior, right? So that's definitely one thing to think about. But other than being a wee bit too fond of a few substances, which to be honest, I'm not going to knock him that.
Yeah, me neither.
If someone wants to bump a few lines, whatever.
Yeah,
that's between you and your consciousness. Just don't let it get in the way of the workplace. Yeah. From my overall understanding of why Metzen left, you know, he had this situation, right, where, you know, he was a young guy with this like crazy success, and then the crazy weight following up on that success with, like, say, StarCraft 2, with Project Titan, all of that, you know, really collapsing and burning. Him also being an executive when, you know, we started off doodling things and doing stories. And from what I understand, yeah, he had a pretty, you know, tumultuous enough time with some of his personal circumstances that, funny enough, actually do come out in the stories of Cataclysm and of Heart of the Swarm.
Yeah, if anyone didn't like
Jimmy and Thrall.
Yeah, if anyone didn't like those characters and those, you know why.
I like Jim.
Jim is all right.
The thing is, though, it ends with mutual respect and acceptance.
Yeah.
Which I think is why, you know...
Could have been worse, like.
Yeah, that's why Jim gets the thumb up.
Yeah.
But I think, especially, you know, he did these podcasts with Scott Johnson, which were, you know, like pretty like emotionally raw and honest. And dude was burnt out. He was basically just going hard for 20 years. And he was burnt out.
I'm tired of hearing that.
So, you know, he left. I guess him and a few of his mates did War Chief because, like, they are pen and paper RPG guys. Like, that is who made World of Warcraft. And now it does seem that he maybe feels like, okay, right, I'm ready to come back.
Either that or John Haidt wrote him a check with a lot of zeros for the PR win. One of the two things.
But, you know, there was the whole thing, you know, like, he has all those crazy things going on, and this is in public domain, which is why I'm okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, through whatever reason, his ex-wife kind of like, you know, learned her sexuality, I suppose, and Chris didn't have a place in that.
Yep.
And, you know, I think that all ended up being an amicable thing, which is good.
Ideal, to be honest.
But, you know, think about all the things that are going to be swaying through his head that are maybe coming out in some of the stories, like in Heart of the Swarm. All the stress, all the fucking mounting tensions and pressures. And then, you know, he marries Cat Hunter, I think is now Cat Hunter Metzen, leaves the company, maybe takes a few years out, you know, maybe goes into some therapy or something, who the fuck knows. That's a good thing to do, by the way. And you can see the kind of been through the ringer and looked back at his past. Maybe this is just me being too, I don't know, a bit too romantic about it, a bit too much of, you know, there being a narrative in my head that I really like.
Big fan boy.
That's kind of what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
And I think this is a time where Warcraft could really benefit from him. I think it's a time where perhaps he would be very well received.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
You know, within Warcraft. And when you kind of look through here, there's a lot of people who are very, you know, strident about stuff with, you know, everything that obviously happened with Blizzard. And, you know, these are people who are publicly expressing joy of him returning to the IP, which certainly does bode well.
Yeah, there's not really a whole pile I can add outside of that. I have to say this out loud, because you know whenever a joke's burning in your head and you have to say it.
Oh dear,
and you're saying
that's usually when you get yourself cancelled.
You're saying that her being, you know, Hunter Metzen. I'm like, well, she was clearly a successful Metzen hunter.
Ah! Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, you will have seen her if back when there was the Direct TV BlizzCon virtual ticket, she was hosting.
Oh god, yeah, remember that. Oh
dear, yeah. Well,
yep.
off the back of Matt's actually really fucking good joke. Yeah. Fuck you. Unless there's anything else, we should probably bump on.
You should bump on, yeah, like Chris. No, I'm sorry. I mean the mirror's right here. Yeah, all right, Asmund, go count
I'll do that. Like an Auntie Donna. It's a good Auntie Donna sketch, but okay. Yeah. Auntie Donna.